So welcome to a little kind of, what should we call this? Like a check-in, pick-me-up session for Civil Lit. So quick information on the deposition summary. So there is a little video here that can walk you through a little bit. I do have the readings from your books that I think are useful, but let me give you a little bit about this. So a deposition summary, like in real life, when you get a deposition hard copy, it is like this thick, right? It's like 2 inches thick. And there is a sample deposition attached in the assignment as well, but it's like this thick. And a deposition in some ways kind of reads like a play or a movie script. And what I mean by that is it's a question answer pair. So, right, the deposing attorney says, where were you on March 17th? And the person who is being deposed, the deponent says, I was at the In-N-Out, because it had rained and I got my free hot chocolate or whatever. So it reads question answer, right? Where were you on March 17th? I was at In-N-Out. What did you get at In-N-Out? I got a hamburger. Did you get free hot chocolate? Oh yeah, I got free hot chocolate. So it reads like that. And then you'll get objections and all kinds of stuff. So if you're trying to read it quickly, it can take a long time because a quicker way to take in the deposition, instead of going, where were you? What did you eat? What did you do? Would just be to say, Kristen was at In-N-Out eating a hamburger and a free hot chocolate. That took 2 sentences versus all the question answer pairs. And in reality, when people do depositions, nobody is perfect. So you get a lot of can you tell me that again? I don't understand the question. What'd you say? Did you say a hamburger or a cheeseburger? A hamburger. And so that could take you pages just to get the simple answer of a hamburger out. So when you do it, so when you do a deposition summary, you are taking out the question answers and kind of consolidating it. So instead of saying attorney Chantal said, where were you on March 17th? And deponent Kristen said, I was at In-N-Out. Now you just say, Kristen was at In-N-Out on March 17th.
Got it. Okay.
So you're taking out those question answer pairs and you are literally summarizing it because the other person might say, I asked attorney Chantal asked, where were you March 17th? Deponent Kristen answered, I was at In-N-Out. In deponent Kristen's answer, she didn't say on March 17th, she was at In-N-Out. That information is attached to the question, right? So when you summarize it, you say on March 17th, Kristen was at In-N-Out. So you are a little bit synthesizing and summarizing the question and the answer together, right? Because of the way it comes. And it makes it less kind of chunky.
Right.
Because it reads, again, it's fun, reading plays and stuff is fun, but it can be a little crazy. So when you do these deposition summaries, and I'm sure this is a little bit being taken over by AI. And actually, if people want to if you want to load some of this and play with it using some of those different, chat GPT features, that's totally fine by me too. But this is a common kind of law firm activity because you'll have just stacks and stacks of these depositions and it would take hours to read them. And they read very chunky because they read kind of like these weird plays with objections thrown in and people, talking about a water or something, getting a water break. So summarizing them is a way for someone to kind of sit down and read a 2.5-hour deposition in 10 or 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are
Condenses
whole
it a lot.
firms. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So condensing it, perfect. And there's firms, there's whole companies, at least a few years ago, that used to just prepare these deposition summaries for law firms. And then some law firms do them internally. And I'm sure there are AI tools that are consolidating the question answers into one line. So this is just your chance. It's a fake deposition that I've attached for you to kind of take your crack at it. So when you do the deposition summary, for it to be useful, you need it to have these 3 parts. Okay. And most of the time, we think of people kind of creating a little table, right? So you could do it in Word, you could do it in Excel. You don't have to do a table, but sometimes it's helpful. So the summary, you'll probably have the page number and line number, as the first kind of thing, the page number, line number. And then the next thing you might have is the actual summary, Kristen went to In-N-Out on March 17th and got a hamburger. And then maybe as the third, this 1-word topic, you might say, this is just going to be called In-N-Out. You know what I mean? And that's where you kind of use your judgment. But it's partly so that because you need the page and line, absolutely, because what if the most important thing in this case is like where I was on March 17th, then you can't just tell the judge, well, she was at In-N-Out. You have to have the citation. You have to say, how do you prove that? Well, on page 7, line 15.
Got
So
it.
you want to give that page and line reference. And then partly because, yeah, if you need it later, if you need it for proof, or maybe that's some real juicy, like no one's quite sure, well, then everyone can physically in the deposition go to that exact page and like look at, page 4, and kind of read all around it. So you always want to include like the general, and it could be this situation of the order In-N-Out. It actually encompasses page 3, line 2, all the way to page 5, line 7, right? So your
Right.
page and line reference might be like, look kind of like, page 3, line 2 to page 5, line 17, right? So it could be a range, because again, it's, it might take
You're
them a whole,
condensing it.
yeah, because you're
Ah,
condensing it. Yep, yep.
okay.
You are summarizing and condensing. So your page and line little thing will typically be a range. And then you'll
Okay.
have like that 1 or 2 sentence summary, right? And then kind of a little 1 or 2 word topic, because if you're ever going back to it and you're like, I just need the In-N-Out stuff, then you could just kind of scan that little topic. So, yeah, so I do recommend Excel, where you can just use table or Word or whatever, but sometimes that's fun. So it kind of causes you a couple things, right? You have to read the deposition,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to kind of think about it a little bit about, what it's saying. And let me clear these so I can scroll down. And then I'm going to tell you the other thing. So you have 2 documents attached in here for our fake deposition. And this is from a textbook publisher. I've talked with some other friends, some teaching colleagues, about using ChatGPT to create like its own fake deposition. So that may be next semester. But right now, this
Okay.
is from a publisher, a textbook author. So what you have is you have the list of characters, because you got to think of this as like a play. You're kind of reading a play script. And it's about a dog bite. A little girl that was bitten by a dog is the fake lawsuit that we have. So the first little document is just giving you the plaintiff, there's the dog, the little girl who was bitten by the dog, Kurt and Carol Robertson, her parents. And then this is kind of funny, and it might be hard to see on this, but you have Marvin and Helen Adcock own the dog. And then my favorite is even the dog is named Bear, and he's a mixed breed. So it just gives you, so the first couple pages is just giving you the characters, right? So you do want to kind of look at that, because otherwise, it just jumps in. It's going to assume And then we have a little sample, very short depo. It'll feel long because it's 34 pages, but
Right.
this is, still just it's an academic, kind of fun thing. So it's a sample deposition, and it's a deposition of, let me see who it says, deponent of Helen Adcock. So that's like the mom of the dog owner. Okay. And then you scroll down and it kind of gives you again who did what when. But at any rate, so here you go. So so Helen is being cross-examined. So depositions are typically like a cross-examining type of situation, because you're being deposed by the opposite side. Like your own attorney doesn't need to depose you. They know your story, right? Because they're representing you. So it's the other side that gets a crack at deposing you. So right here you go. State your full name, Helen. How do you spell it? Again, you would probably in your summary, you would even just say, this is the deposition of Helen Adcock. You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
even need to do that. But so you're going to read through this, and then I'm trying to get to like a couple good parts. So the first few pages, she goes through like, do you guys have insurance? Where do you live? Where were your previous addresses? All that kind of stuff. And so you're just going to read through it and decide how you want to summarize it. So let me go back up top here. When you go to the pages in the book, there's kind of 3 philosophies of how to do a deposition summary, is what I would say. And the 3 philosophies center around, one is chronological. The 2 is narrative. That makes no sense. I'm going to say page numbers. And the 3rd is by topic. So let me tell you, so what you want to think of this is you're holding like that deposition, you're holding the deposition papers, if you had them in physical paper. And it's like you ripped off the binding and you throw them up in the air. And now you're going to let them fall back down, and you get to rearrange the pages however you want. Okay. So I think in your head, imagine that part of the deposition summary is you ripping all the pages up, letting them fall back down in the order that you want them to fall into, not necessarily in the order they happened.
Got it.
And so those three different styles of options, the first one is chronological. And what that really means is, how did this thing unfold in time? So if I was doing a chronological summary of this little Depo sample, like it's about a dog bite, right? But it starts with the lady, like, who are you? Tell me where you lived 10 years ago. So that stuff happened. So I'm going to talk about her history, where she lived. Now she's married. Now they live on the street. Okay, now they got Bear as their dog. How long have they had Bear? Oh, he's this age, all the things, all the things. And then we get to probably towards the end, the day the little girl gets bit by the dog. She gets bit by the dog, and then what happens next? But that may not necessarily be how it was asked in the deposition, right? The deposition might have started with her history, and then it might have gone to, tell me about the day of the dog bite. Dun, dun, dun. And then it might have gone, can you tell me about the dog's history? How long have you had Bear? Were you surprised when he bit the little girl? Bloop, 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 bloop. So the way they asked the questions didn't necessarily follow how it happens in time. And if you watch a lot of trials, or you get into a lot of like this kind of thing, that kind of makes sense, because sometimes you're like, we're going to start with the most dramatic thing, the car crash. Tell me about the car crash. Gaga. And then you're like, now 6 weeks before the car crash, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
does that make
Very
sense?
true.
So it's kind of like if you watch those, like a lot of TV shows like time jumping, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes when you question witnesses, because you're also kind of, you're making a point and you're telling a story, so you might do time jumps. But if you like the chronological flow, you're going to reorder things when they fall back down into the chronological order of how they happened from like the beginning of time all the way up until today. You know what I mean? So it's going to
Okay.
be like 6 weeks before the car accident, and then the car accident, and then the medical after the car accident, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that is one way, and these are your choice. This is where it's like your style. The second one, narrative, or I put page numbers, that's just where you actually don't reorder the pages. You're just going to exactly follow the pages kind of as they go, if that makes sense. So that one, you don't have to reorder it, right? But be careful, because sometimes like they might be like on page 5 talking about In-N-Out and getting hamburgers, and then we move on, and then it's the car accident. But then on page 72, we come back and we mention that I got hot chocolate
Right.
when I was at In-N-Out. So you're like, oh, so you might want to, but the narrative just kind of follows the page numbers. Okay. And now the topic is slightly different. Pages come up, you reorder them, and now you might reorder them by, the most important thing is the dog bite. So I'm going to start with the dog bite. All the things in this depo that are about the dog bite, that's what I'm going to summarize in the first parts. Then I'm going to go to the history of the family, or the history of this, or you know what I mean? So now I'm just going to, so I might start with the topic of the car accident. Then I'm going to go to what they were doing before the car accident. Then I'm going to talk about the medical after the car accident. And again, it's just kind of your style, like what you think makes sense, and maybe how the deposition kind of that you're dealing with went. But those are like your 3 main options that are kind of recognized by others as sort of the style for doing a deposition summary. Like, are you going to follow how it happened in time chronologically, no time jumps? Are you going to follow the exact kind of order that they were questioned at that deposition, like, 2 years later? Or are you going to organize it how you want based on like large topics?
Yeah, I think I like that, the topic situation.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want, and however you order it, this ordering just refers to how it's going to appear in your summary, right? So you're still going to have, the 3 elements, summary, page, and line. You're just going to decide, what will the beginning of my little summary, is it going to be a chronological, a narrative, or a topic based? And then the other thing, this is like a 34-page deposition. A lot of times the summaries, depending on the format you use, but they're a page or 2 long, because you can use Excel. You should use a full sentence, so maybe don't use bullet points. But I mean, it's going to be like 2 sentences summarizing potentially a page or 2, or a page, or, a whole block of questioning that you kind of summarize into, a few sentences. And you don't want to leave anything out, but you'll see how you can really kind of chunk it together. And so I would typically say from what other students turn in. These are a few pages long, or like kind of an Excel, you know, it fits on about a page if they do that way, you know, 2 or 3, but you're not writing in paragraph format. You're kind of writing them as like a 3-column thing.
Okay.
So yeah, doop, something like that, you know, and there's going to be, you know, text in there. This is very high level, yeah.
We must have text in the box.
Yeah, we got a little text in there. Yeah, you need to have something in there. And then here might be like your, you know, page in line. And like if you were ever, you know, if you were at a firm or you had an attorney or something, they'd probably have a format, or, you know, use this or use that they like. And then you would follow that, of course. And it could just be, you know, but it's just a way to kind of, it's a typical academic assignment that we use. And then it's a way to help you guys just dive in and kind of read a depo. If you've never read a depo or you've never attended a deposition before, kind of have a chance to, like, you know, see, I mean, it is a fake transcript, but it's pretty accurate, like what it looks like and stuff. So.
Okay. I feel way better now. Okay.
Yay. Okay, good. Okay, hold on.
Yes.
I'm gonna do any big questions, because I'll stop the recording for a second if you think you're good on the.
I do have a
Oh
question.
yeah.
So if we do the chronological, is it just taking all the facts from the case and putting them from beginning to end, or is it just like you said, the dog bite and then the background, or the background then the dog bite?
Yeah, so if you do chronological, that means you're going to start with the oldest and you're going to go to the newest. So
Okay.
for our thing, you would start with like the history of the mom, you know, her background, maybe history of the dog.
Okay.
And then you're going to get to the dog bite. Oops. And then maybe whatever happened after the dog bite.
Okay.
Yeah. And it could be that the depo pretty closely follows that, you know, because sometimes they're asking the questions in a chronological manner, but, you know, so it might kind of closely track to just the page numbers, but, you know, it may not too. They might pop something in, you know, here and there that are out of order. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah. Okay, good. Doop. Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
Should I stop recording right now, or any more on this one?
I'm good.
I'm
Okay,
good.
awesome. Let me stop recording this. Hold on.